Yesterday we have gone through some points of Dharma in relation to 3 levels of wisdom and the importance of developing the right view and the practice of the right behavior and training in the right meditation. So although the essential practice is always inner practice on the level of our mind, so therefore meditation is the principal method of developing our mind. That is the principal point in the teaching of Buddha, that when Buddha says in that summary of his teaching, tame your own mind, don't commit any negative actions, practice wholesome in the perfect way, and tame your own mind. So this third one, tame your own mind, is very essential. First 2 are indispensable: preparation, abandoning all what is harmful, negative, and practicing the virtues perfectly. And then these are the preparations, and then the actual practice is to be done within one's own mind. And therefore Buddha said, tame your own mind. And this tame your own mind, that actually shows all the meaning of all those teachings which Buddha has taught in the sutras and tantras, and small vehicle, great vehicle, a very vast teaching are given. So variety of practices are also given. But all that is contained in this line, tame your own mind. So all actually the meaning of all teaching of Dharma, or the purpose and the aim of all the teachings which Buddha has given, are only 2. That is to help the beings to be free from the suffering and help the beings to attain a lasting happiness. There is not any other different purposes. There are simply these 2 purposes. That's what the sentient beings also, there are all their multiple interests and wishes and activities are all for these 2 purposes, nothing other. And exactly accordingly also Buddha's teachings are also taught only for accomplishing these 2 purposes and nothing other than that. So these 2 aspirations gives meaning to everything. Whatever we are doing which is not for those 2 purposes, accomplishment of those 2 purposes, then are meaningless. Whatever one does or says or anything thinks about which is not connected with these 2 purposes are totally meaningless, has no meaning whatsoever. So therefore ultimately what the sentient beings are doing, what the Buddhas are doing, becomes meaningful when it is for the sake of liberating from the sufferings and accomplishment of lasting happiness. And as long as it's something connected with that, even on a superficial level or on a deeper level, then gives meaning. So therefore, the sentient beings, what we are doing has also meaning, important meaning. And accordingly, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are being active has a great meaning, because it is all connected with these 2 key issues. So these 2 points are extremely important, which gives meaning to everything on the worldly level as well as on the spiritual level. So therefore our ordinary activities are not all meaningless, it has meaningful. They are meaningful, just exactly as also all the sentient beings, all the animals, all those who are crawling on the ground, or even tiny ones running around underground, have meaning, because they are all striving for attain some happiness and to be free from some suffering, and that keeps everybody busy. That makes their activities also meaningful. The human beings also do a lot of things which has not any meaning whatsoever also, which has nothing to do with the attainment of happiness or freeing from the sufferings. Lot of meaningless things. This is rare for other sentient beings like the animals. They have no time to do some things which are meaningless. The human beings, because we are fortunate existence, so therefore we think we have a lot of time, so therefore we waste also a lot of time for nothing, keeping busy and taking things very important, run here and there, which actually, if one analyze, there's nothing substantial, no meaning whatsoever, only to occupy with to waste our time. But of course there are a lot of unnegligible, meaningful things, whether it doesn't, when we say meaningful, doesn't have to be some deep meaning, everything on the spiritual level. No, in our daily life, in our ordinary activities, they're all things what we are doing, we are pursuing, are meaningful, even though it's a temporary meaning, but still meaningful. That means for the sake of attainment of happiness and for the sake of freeing from the suffering. That gives meaning to our activities as well. Of course, then such a meaning can become deeper and not only so temporary meaning or very superficial meaning, or a deeper, more lasting meaning, not only meaningful for one's own sake, even for the sake of other sentient beings. And that way we have the possibility, especially with our human mind, we have the possibility to expand and deepen that meaning that we are giving to our own life, that can extend, that can be deepened, but anyway altogether. And that's what actually the Bodhisattvas have expanded, that meaning also. Not only concentrating upon one's own freedom from the suffering and attainment of some happiness, but extending that, knowing the situation of all sentient beings being there, so they also are not only occupied with their own private aims or meanings, but also universal aims and purposes. So that way it's extended. But still the meaning is the same, that is freeing from the sufferings and accomplishment of happiness, which gives the meaning to what everybody is doing. Whatever one individual, ourselves, and a worldly person is engaged with, for freeing ourselves from sufferings and attaining happiness, or what we are doing, not only just one single person, maybe also for the sake of one's own families, for their sake, to free them from sufferings and to help them to obtain happiness. All these kind of views and the activities that we engage in, that way becomes meaningful. In the same way, those who has already transcended that level of the concern, that level of focus upon oneself or one's own surroundings, extending it to infinitely towards every sentient beings, and that way developing a very broad view, very broad understanding, and also a broad engagement to help all beings freeing from suffering and providing happiness. What the Bodhisattvas, Buddhas have developed in them, in their mind, such kind of concerns, such kind of activities are what is meaningful. So therefore, it's not only, even on a very ordinary level, there could be also those who, with a broader view and a deeper intelligence, also realizes, recognizes that one's own well-being also is connected, dependent upon the well-being of many others. They are interdependent. So that way, instead of just focusing only on one's own single benefit, instead one develops a view which is broader, more universal or global or whatever we may call, that exists not only on high-level spirituality, also it exists in our human consciousness, in our human view, and the wise and broad view that exists. So all these are very meaningful. That's very correct also, to having such, we have naturally such a longing for happiness and a longing for freedom of suffering. That is not something negative, absolutely correct, and also not only it's correct, but also everybody, all sentient beings have also the equal right to be free from all the sufferings and to obtain happiness. They are in this quest has nothing wrong in it. The problem comes when one tries to accomplish that goal of attainment of a happiness, if possible lasting happiness, then to be free from suffering, from all suffering, is the goal of everybody. Then when we try to accomplish that goal, then there comes a big difference. Then ordinary beings like ourselves, with, as I said yesterday, whose minds are very much still based upon in the ignorance and a lot of delusions, then do not manage really to find out what is the real source of happiness and what is the real source of the suffering. So therefore we are doing something to accomplish that ultimate goal, but then we are completely ignorant about the way to accomplish it, because we are ignorant also about what we actually try to pursue. That means happiness and the suffering. We have all kinds of erroneous views about it, and we are totally ignorant about what is the source of happiness, what is the source of the suffering. So therefore we are doing something for accomplishing such goal, but then very often this method is so inadequate that cannot produce a desired goal at all in a satisfactory manner. And not only that, sometimes even our method is so counterproductive, so that for the sake of obtaining happiness we create a whole lot of suffering for oneself and others. So that way we are totally mistaken about the ways and means to accomplish that goal. And then this way the earnest desire remains completely in vain, without any kind of fulfillment. And that is the general problem of all beings, especially now ourselves, these samsaric beings. In order to free ourselves from the great suffering such as hunger and thirst, we are pursuing food and to obtain food and drinks and so forth. When one feels ill and not well, one also seeks the help of the medicine and doctors and so on. And one is suffering great difficulty, poverty or something, one pursues certain business actions or to gain some wealth, to overcome this kind of suffering. All these are not necessarily all wrong methods or negative methods. These could be correct methods, and these may also provide certain results, the desired results also. However, still they are very limited. Their effect is very limited, and not only that, if one is not careful in skillfully dealing with these things, sometimes very condition of happiness may turn into condition of suffering. Wealth can surely overcome the suffering of poverty, but with wealth, if one does not deal with it, as Buddha has said, with contentment, satisfaction, generosity and skillfulness, instead of that, if we blindly cling ourselves to the wealth with a strong clinging attachment, with avarice and miserliness, with jealousy and with all kind of pride and so on, then that very correct method for overcoming the suffering can again change into cause for a lot of other suffering. So therefore, these methods, even those which are correct, effective method, can become also counterproductive due to our false attitude. So therefore, these methods available, which we use all the time in our ordinary capacity, are very limited. Even though they can be right, they can be effective, but still very limited. Also, always bound with some risks. So food is the most important thing to sustain our life. For survival, that is very important. But then at the same time, through making mistakes in the manner of dealing with the food, eating wrong food, eating too much or whatever, or eating in the wrong time, the wrong substance, in the wrong manner. There are lots of mistakes that one can do about about the consummation of the food. And due to that, a whole lot of illnesses, most of the illnesses that we are suffering from are caused through our own the consummation of the food. Either something wrong with the substance or our manner. And of course, the deeper cause is the greed and all that, ignorance and greed and nothing else. But we can, so therefore easily, even the most substantial, most important cause for our sustaining our life, our fundamental kind of happiness, to become destructive. So, due to our great ignorance and greed and so on, we go really beyond the limit what we consume, what we put in our mouth. And so therefore, a whole lot of things, and anything that what one takes in excessively, even the best food and good food whatsoever, anything taken excessively transforms into something poisonous. So therefore, a lot of us suffering from such problems of sugar and this, all that. Sugar in itself is not poison, but excessively taking such substance, then it transforms into poisonous, poisoning ourselves. In the same way, so there are so limitless things that the human being, out of our great ignorance and greed, limitless greed, then there is no limit for the ways how we poisoning ourselves. All those substances unnecessarily, which doesn't help at all even to sustain our life whatsoever, such as all those things like drinking, smoking, all these things are only poison after poison that we are putting in ourselves, our body, and a whole lot of still additional intoxicating drugs and things. Of course, that's only mostly youngsters because of their childish mind and the curious mind do, but it's not only that, but because if one does it too long, one gets addicted to it. One cannot be without it. Then it causes danger for the life, as many lives and even many young lives have lost in this way, destroyed in this. Also, all these limitless or poisoning oneself has become a kind of everyday way of life of people, which is, of course, nothing else than sign of very heavy, double, triple ignorance and greed, excessive greed and ignorance. So therefore, all these things, which we are pursuing for attainment of happiness and freedom from suffering or problems, a whole lot of things we pursue. However, even those which are really good methods, effective methods, also are limited, and then also we use also, even these correct ones also can become something counterproductive. And then of course there's a whole endless series of many other absolutely wrong and negative methods which are directly cause of suffering, which we mistake it to be cause for happiness of oneself, such as cheating others, luring others, cheating others, their mind in order to gain something for oneself. Whole lot of things that we pursue, many people pursue, and then causing suffering to the others, destroying the lives of the others, waging wars to defeat so-called our enemies, also for the sake of our victory, etc. There are a whole lot of things which are absolutely all in all wrong and negative and direct cause of suffering, but then still due to a very heavy fundamental ignorance and such additional heavy delusions like egoism, self-cherishing attitude and desire, hatred and all that, then we engage in a whole lot of such things. Those are all supposed to be for our happiness and for freeing from suffering, but those are right from the beginning till end. It's all negative and wrong and mistaken, and therefore good for nothing, only cause suffering to the others, and whatever cause suffering to the others sooner or later becomes cause for greater suffering for oneself. So therefore it ends up ruining everybody. But we mistakenly think these are the right methods. So because of such under the forces, under the power of fear or ignorance and egoism, these kind of delusions, we are constantly in mistakes and creates a cause of sufferings. When we hear about such things like, it is quite unimaginable. However, it becomes a reality under the influence of the delusions and nothing else. All these things like World War and things like World War First, World War Second, it almost sounds there's something very important, historic, some event take place. But these are total craziness. They should be rather called Crazy War 1, Crazy War 2. These are total, completely lunatics. Totally, everybody, first of all, of course, those who planned, who commanded, went crazy, and then some powerlessly, most people engaged in such war, very powerlessly, helplessly, led into such things, and under which so many beings must. It's total craziness. Is there some better word than, stronger word than craziness? We can use anything, whatever, Yeah, total madness. Anyways, completely. There's nothing so important historic. There's nothing so important, so political and so. That's how we say, but there's nothing really. Politics should be a little bit wiser. But so this is not politics. This is total craziness. Everybody is going crazy, and if we now watch those old films and something, it's something completely meaningless, totally meaningless, absolute no meaning. How important people are meeting together and talking and signing something whatsoever. It's all totally craziness. It is too much oppression of the delusions. Delusions are always there within our mind, and they are always influencing us. They are always manifesting through our actions all the time. But that kind of thing is too much excessive delusion manifesting in its ugliest form, whatever is possible. So then comes such kind of things, such kind of craziness, which are given in that World War First, World War Second, maybe some are even anticipating a third one also. But anyway, anything can happen because there's no limit for the delusions. Delusions activities. There's no devils or anybody who is putting everybody under some evil magical spell. It is just simply our delusions. And there's very little wisdom counteracting those. However, we should hope that people generate a little more wisdom, more and more wisdom, and therefore, in the things so crazy like that would not happen. And for that, even the teaching of the enlightened one, Buddha, flourishing in the world, can contribute for that, for causing a little bit more wisdom to increase. But that's also not easy. It's full of obstacles everywhere. But anyway, why I've explained it is under the influence, the powerful influence or the spell of those delusions, those egoism and those hatred and so on, then there's no limit to what the human beings can do, and making up totally crazy things like such destructive weapons, bombs and so on. We regard them as great scientists, but these are really, if there is some kind of devil influence, then surely it is surely influence the first of all such people. So, but that's nothing to do with the devil. It is the ignorance and false intelligence. What we call that praja, there is the wisdom, but then there is just when the wisdom or intelligence goes wrong, in a wrong direction, then it becomes degenerate intelligence. And that's what happens in the mind of people like that. And then they come up with fantastic, extraordinary, destructive, creating causing conditions. So therefore it is absolutely right what is also written in the scripture, like the wrong ways are infinite. So they are really, the wrong ways are infinite, wrong views are infinite. So in all this kind of process, why our pursuits often gone wrong or completely inadequate, is because we are very ignorant, or we completely ignore, we don't care about the real origin of our sufferings. We are seeking the freedom from the suffering, for which sake we do all those things which I've mentioned before, correct, incorrect, everything. However, without bringing any fulfillment, is because we totally ignore or totally ignorant about the actual source of the sufferings. And because we have this fixed idea, the source of my sufferings are somewhere out there. My sufferings come from outside, come from this person, come from him, come from her, come from other group, come from the other nation, come from somewhere else, always from somewhere else, mostly from somebody else. So therefore we make somebody else or something else responsible for our suffering. This is our fixed idea. And also in the same way we also think our happiness also comes from outside. So therefore we look outward for the cause of happiness, for the source of happiness. It is maybe wealth, there's a lot of money, or it's a particular place, particular country, or particular companion, and such things. Whole lot of ordinary objects around ourselves are labeling them as a source of happiness. So therefore we must acquire our happiness from them. So we try to accumulate as much as we can, etc. And those sorts of sufferings must be challenge them outside, we have to destroy them, etc. So that is the fixed idea that we have. That means total mistaken view about the origin of the sufferings. Not only what Buddha has taught, not only we are totally mistaken about the first noble truth of the suffering, we are particularly mistaken about the second noble truth, the noble truth of the cause. About the cause we are totally confused and completely mistaken. And that's why we try to do something for preventing sufferings and accomplishing happiness, but it doesn't work because it all depends on the cause, and the cause is untouched, totally ignored, then only through the arrangement of the outer conditions alone. Rearranging, only the conditions alone cannot bring a satisfactory result.